Hello and welcome to Zoo Radio. I'm Colin Daly and each week I'll be taking you on a guided tour of the zoo. We have been granted exclusive behind-the-scenes access to all the major exhibits, as well as a unique insight into the residents from the people that know them best. This series has been recorded using the very latest in three-dimensional binaural recording techniques and is best listened to through a set of stereo headphones.
I'm Colin Ward, I'm the actual animal manager here. Typically, first thing in the morning, usually about 7:45, the keeper will come and check them, check they're alright, check they've had no knocks or bangs through the night, check the health and assess. Should it be a warm morning, we'd get the doors open, get them outside for about 8 o'clock. If it's a bit colder, similar to today, it's generally about 9-10 o'clock when at least there's a bit more warmth in the air, because giraffes don't like the cold weather, it's the one thing they hate. Generally then cleaning will commence. They have a large straw bed through the night, not that they lie in it, but it's there for their comfort anyway, so that all needs to be moved out. The floors get hosed down, bleached nice and clean, so everything's ready for the public coming in. We try to eliminate most of the smells, but you can't eliminate everything. But then you come to a zoo, you expect animal smells, it's part of the excitement. Once cleaning's done, then breakfast is prepared. They get a muesli very similar to what people eat, made up of soybean meal, flake maize, wheat bran, all these things that people would eat. That's placed in the bowls. They also have the lucerne, which is a type of grass. It's a very coarse grass. Yeah. Giraffes need something to chew on, which is put up in the rack, which they spend sort of 10-15 minutes then consuming the breakfast.
And who have we got here then? Who are these?
This one's Kaya. This is our oldest female. She was born in 1989. She came to us from London as a 2-year-old. She came to us as a young female. She's been here the rest of the time. This also is Keisha. This is her daughter. Keisha was born here and she's remained with us as another breeding female. And then the third one is Justin, our young male. He is now 2 years old. He came to us from Suffolk Wildlife Park as an unrelated male to breed with our 2 females.
And is it successful, the breeding programme?
We've bred lots of giraffes, yes. We haven't got them all here simply because you can't keep large numbers. Our building is built for sort of 3 to 5 animals, which means that's the space that they need, so we never get more than that in. What happens is we do breed lots of babies, but we send them on to other collections, safari parks, other zoos, people that are waiting for giraffes, which in turn we've done back. We've brought in a new male from another collection that's got the same predicament.
They are magnificent animals. They're towering above me here and I'm feeling a bit nervous, shall we say. What made you decide to become a giraffe keeper, and was that your initial instinct after leaving school?
It wasn't my initial aim, no. I was brought up on farms. I was a farmer, born and bred sort of thing. I've also done a lot of stockmanship. It was simply because I wanted to try something a bit more exotic, and I applied for a position at the zoo just over 14 years ago and gradually worked my way up through all the other animals to my position now as animal manager.
And are the giraffes your favourite animal, or can you not say?
They are, simply because they're the animal I've worked with the most. But as to favourites, they all have the days when, if they're in a bit of a mood, and you're in a bit of a mood. But no, they are one of the favourites of the zoo. They're one of the mega vertebrates that all zoos tend to have.
Is it true that they have the same amount of vertebrates in their neck as we do?
They do. They have the same 7 bones as humans and pet mice. The only difference is that the giraffe's bones are actually a foot long.
Has there been any escape attempts made by the giraffes?
No, they're generally pretty placid. They've got no qualms. There's no reason to sort of try and get out. They've got everything in their enclosure. As you can see this morning, we've put plenty of browse up. Although there's not much leaf in it, they'll still spend hours debarking branches. They naturally eat acacia in the wild. We can only replicate that with hawthorn, which is very similar. And yes, because they've got such tough mouths, their leathery lips, their hard tongues, they can chew up any thorns. It's not a problem to them.
How much food would they eat a day then?
Concentrates, they're on sort of 12 to 14 pounds in weight. The lucerne again, which is very similar to a standard hay bale, you sort of talk 2.5 bales. depending on their appetite and depending on the weather. Like today, because it's quite cold, they will eat a lot more than in the warm summer days, same as us. In the winter you want a hot meal, in the summer you'd eat a small salad. Animals work exactly the same. The cold weather they will devour a lot because they're using it for the metabolism to keep warm. So it is quite a high rate of food going through them through the winter months.
So where would these giraffes originate from then?
Giraffes come from Africa. They used to range the whole continent of Africa. They don't anymore, simply by human encroachment. They have been pushed in further and further away. But there's still a plentiful supply of giraffes out in Africa.
And do they have individual personalities?
Not really. I mean, giraffes very often are a sort of animal that wants to come to you rather than you go to them. They're that sort. They'll come and fuss you and make a fuss, but they don't like you to actually handle them and touch them unnecessarily, unless they want you to.
Yeah, they seem to make a beeline straight over here. Was that you, or was that the lettuce, do you think?
It's the food that's encouraging them across. We actually do a giraffe encounter, which is as a small fee, and we actually allow the public to come in and feed the animals and get quite close to them.
Okay. Do they need any kind of additional supplements that they may be lacking that they would get in the wild?
All zoo animals have mineral and vitamin supplements. It's part of the diet. It's just the same as humans. So yes, everything is in place, and their diet is nutritionally based, so they are getting everything they need.
Ooh, hello. I seem to like my microphone quite a lot. Can you tell me the name for their collective?
They're Giraffidae. Giraffe camelopardalis, they're actually classed as. What it means is a camel that looks like a leopard.
Do they display any human attributes as opposed to naturally wild giraffes?
Not as such. I mean, when the mums have babies, they are really protective of them. They literally expect you to keep away and not interfere. And same as with the males, when the females are coming into season, which means they're getting ready for breeding, it's another time they get really protective of their own, and they literally don't want interference. But that's virtually all they will show.
How long is their lifespan in captivity as opposed to in the wild?
It's quite difficult. I mean, captive animals, because now the nutrition's far better than it was years ago. The veterinary care is far better now because we know what drugs work. So they are living a lot longer. Anything sort of from up to 30 years, 25 to 30 is quite normal now, which it never used to be. It was 10 to 15. There again in the wild, I mean, in safe enclosures, safe environments, they are living longer. The thing is, in the wild, they only need one off day when they're not feeling quite well, or something's happened to them. That's when they will be pulled down. Whereas in captivity, that doesn't arise because we can retreat them.
And do they suffer from any like arthritis or any kind of natural ailments that are common to giraffes?
Not really. Then again, all old animals start to suffer with bones and joint problems. But there again, there's an awful lot now of medication that's been worked on horses and cattle that work really well on giraffes to ease the ailments, to make their lives very comfortable.
Brilliant. Okay, and who's this one here that's about to bite my head?
This is little Justin, who's come back out again. You'll see, because it's so cold, what they tend to do is they go back in the house, have a quick warm up, because the house is constantly heated, so it's lovely and warm in the house. So what they'll do, they'll go in the house, warm back up again, pop back out, have a wander around. You know, they are cooling all the time. The giraffe's body is built for the hot weather. So what happens is that the blood vessels are just under the skin, so they're actually losing heat quite quickly, which is what they're supposed to do in Africa. You turn the system round so they're in this country that it's doing the same thing, but they're losing heat too quickly, which is why the giraffe house is constantly heated. But like you can see now, they're quite happy outside, and they'll stop outside for a good 3/4 of an hour to 2 hours, but then you'll find they'll go back in, just stand in the warm and just warm themselves back up again.
How do they communicate between themselves? Because they don't make any noises as such, so there's no call? Or...
There's no call, it's just an odour. Very often you will...
Right on cue for the odour.
That's the odour. No, very often even in the wild, you'll go through areas of Africa and you will actually smell. You'll say, oh, giraffe have been here, or there's giraffe around. It works exactly the same with these. Although they've got very good eyesight, so they can actually see for a long, long way. It's generally an odour that wafts in certain areas that you can actually sense that giraffes are around.
Is the hearing good?
I don't think it's actually been looked into. I wouldn't have thought so. It's possibly there, but it's more the sight from the height, and like you say, the smells. Smells are a huge thing for wild animals to find out where things are, whether it's another giraffe or whether it's a lion creeping up on them.
Okay, and is there any plans to... Are you just going to continue with the breeding programme here, or are you going to bring more giraffes in, or what's the future?
Hopefully, like I say, with bringing in the new male, we hope he will breed with our 2 females. Long term, depends how finances go. We could build them a lot bigger enclosure on the new master plan, which we could increase them. At the moment, like I was saying, our building and our enclosure is built for sort of 3 to 4 animals, so we need to keep it at that level. It's far better to have fewer animals in a large space than a lot of animals really cramped up.
So they provide you with ample compost for the roses?
Well, yes, it's constantly coming out the far end. Unfortunately, though, we don't supply the faeces for human use. It all has to be disposed of safely and properly.
I watched a programme on Longleat, and they spread some of it on the fields.
Well, the Longleat estate is a huge area. Like I said, there's lots of farmland. We can't actually do that here because our car parks and our fields are used by the public, so it's not
the
an
visitors.
option. It's not an option.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Down from the breast of wild female common elders is still collected, cleaned and sold to manufacturers to stuff duvets and sleeping bags. The white-naped crane is classed as vulnerable, as there are only between 5,500 and 6,500 left in the wild. Twycross Zoo is one of only 3 collections in the UK to have bred double-wattled cassowaries, the other 2 being Paignton and Edinburgh zoos. Flamingos use their curved beaks to filter their food from the water. Their tongue pushes water through their lamella, leaving just food in their mouth. With double-wattled cassowaries, it is the male that incubates the eggs and rears the chicks. He will care for youngsters from several females at once.
Hello, I'm Teresa Vargenchik. I've worked at zoo for 25 years now. I was just the gorilla keeper until we've had a restructure in the zoo recently, and now I've been promoted to section head of African apes, which includes the chimpanzees and the pygmy chimps, bonobos.
Which animals are we seeing today then?
We're looking at the gorillas today because they're the ones that I look after, generally anyway. So what we're going to do in a short while is we're going to go and give Joe, which is the oldest silverback gorilla that we've got. He's 42 this year. So we're going to go and give him his midday snack. So hopefully he's going to give us some nice rumbles and things, which he generally does. But like with children, they always say never work with children and animals because they're never going to do what you think they're going to do.
If you ever need to silence an animal, just call me.
Well, we'll know who to blame them. If there's no noises in there, it's your fault.
Okie dokie.
Right, okay, so we're going to get his snack now.
And what we got here then? What's for lunch?
Basically, what it was a couple of years ago, he was a bit poorly and he went off his food. So what we had to do was give him some yeast tablets, it's got B vitamins and things in, which was encouraging his appetite. But when you're giving things like that, you have to give food with it as well. So ordinarily, he wouldn't have had this snack now. Although now he doesn't really need the yeast tablets, it's just something that I still do because obviously the extra vitamins are beneficial for him for his age and things. And with animals, it's the same with children. You've got to be consistent. Once you've started doing something, you can't just suddenly stop because they don't understand why you're not doing it anymore. So basically, all that he's having here is things he would have had on his tea anyway, but he's having them at an earlier time, and he'll have a few extra things there, like he's got a few grapes, he's got half a plum, he's got 2 tomatoes, half a lemon, 2 leaves of Chinese leaf, and half a bunch of celery. And obviously his yeast tablets. Okay. And then after he's had that, to swill it all down, he's got a litre of orange squash.
Are these his favourites, are they?
Anything's Joe's favourites. He's a bit like me, he's got a bottomless pit, he'll eat more or less anything what you give him. But they tend to like a lot of the fruit items because they get mainly vegetables to eat. They don't have a lot of fruit. They do get fruit, but in the wild they would have fruit, but it's mainly vegetation what they would eat.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously it's like a bit like Fort Knox now, where you'll hear me opening all the doors, and it's just a safety precaution.
That's
you know.
fine.
So we're going into the main corridor now, which is like at the back beds. We've got 3 bed areas in this side, and the end one is where Joe sleeps. He's got a big bed. Yes, that was a nice rumble from Joe there. Shredded paper, and obviously this is all cleaned every day. So when he comes in of an evening to have his evening meal, he's got all the paper there, and then once he's finished, he'll make his own bed. It's just to reproduce, like in the wild, they would have vegetation which they'd pull down and then make a night nest each evening. But obviously you can't supply things like that, so it's just a compromise on giving him something to make a bed out of, and obviously it's for us to keep it clean as well, so obviously the bedding's changed daily as well.
Brilliant.
So we open yet another door, and then this one leaves us actually next to the wire where Joe will be waiting for his snack. Ready? Oh, you are a good boy. Yes. Now those rumbles that you hear are the nicest noise that you can get from a griller, because that's a sign of appreciation, and just to say that he's going to enjoy what he's having. Yes, that was, I'm not being quick enough. So there's his yeast tablets, just pop him all straight into his mouth. And he's getting comfy now, because instead of sitting up, he's laid down. Thank you. 1 tomato. I don't know if you noticed, but the little stalky bit that you've got on the end, I've left it on, but he'll actually take that off with his lips before he pops the tomato in his mouth.
His hands
See?
are absolutely enormous.
Yeah. They're quite leathery as well, because it is almost like a hard leather if you was to feel the back of his hands.
What kind of weight is he?
He is slightly overweight actually, but at his age, at 42, he's getting old and he's spoiled. So he'd probably be in the region of about 32 stone, but we haven't actually weighed him, so you know that is just a guess.
And this is as close as you can get safely, isn't
Yes, yeah. Nobody's been in with Joe since he was about 6 years old.
it? Right.
A few grapes. Now I'll put his lemon on the wire because that's not one of his favourite foods. He will eat it later, but it's as a last resort, so he's when he's got nothing else left, he'll go back to that.
I'm a similar way with vegetables.
Oh, well, they enjoy all the vegetables. But then saying that, each animal, they are all very individual, and there's certain ones that, like with Joe, he's not that keen on swede and parsnip. I don't bother giving him parsnip now because he just leaves it and then it's just a waste. But all the others eat it. So even down to that, they are very much like us where, you know, they have got the preferences on what they'll eat and what they won't eat.
And how much will he consume in a day then?
It is all weighed out, but as a bulk, I couldn't actually tell you for definite what it actually weighs out at, as a whole. I mean, I weigh all of his food individually as he's getting it, but it's one of the things where, because you're swapping and changing things all the time, it's, you know, I never sort of... basically what they get is when they come in the morning, when we come in the morning, we've got 3 groups. There's 9 gorillas at the zoo at the moment. And what it is they're actually split up into different groups because you can't house the male gorillas together because they'll fight, and it will actually, if they're not separated, one will kill the other one. You know, not necessarily straight away, but by the wounds that are inflicted. You know, because in the wild that situation doesn't occur. You might get a couple of males together, but usually if they're in a group they'll perhaps be brothers, so they've always been together, so there's not the animosity between them. You tend to get a lot of bachelor males which roam around. They will come into contact with another male and they might stay with them for a day or so if there's no females about, and they'll get on okay, but they won't tend to live together permanently like that. They'll move about all the time. So once they've got their own group, you can have as many females in a group as a male can get, basically. But here at the zoo, because we've got the males and we haven't got as many females... Yes, I'm going to give you your drink now. He said, stop talking and just get on with it. I'll shut up and then you might actually be able to hear him swigging the pot. I mean, even down to drinking, they all have different ways of doing it. He tends to like a big mouthful at a time, whereas one of the others, they'll just constantly drink from the bottle. Bree prefers it like this. So all I'm doing is tipping a... If you imagine that yourself, you're having a swig of pop and then double it, and then that's what he's getting. He's getting like double the quantity in one mouthful is what we would actually have, and then just tipping the rest of it in.
And that's a whole litre gone already.
Yeah.
Crikey. Throughout these programmes in the series, I usually ask what's the best and worst part of the job. I can't imagine anything being much better than this, really.
No, the rewards that you get from the animals far outweigh anything else. Now, you're going to get a little bit of sawdust now. This is a game that he's got that it's his way of saying to me, well, if you've got a visitor here that you want me to be nice to, you've got to go and fetch me something else to eat. So do you want the sawdust?
It's completely up to you.
Well, it's clean sawdust, so we'll wait and see what he does then, because all it
Okay.
is that after he's done that, then I tend to go and get him a few nuts and raisins. So
Okay.
as long as you're ready for that.
Okay,
When
well-
he's ready, obviously. Pardon, and as just like with typical males, he's just had a big burp after he's had his pop.
I resemble that remark.
Yes, anyway, so what I was saying was here we've got... Joe's actually on his own because he's never reproduced, so he's not...
Hey!
He's not had the females with him now for about 8 years. He used to have access to the females, but because he didn't reproduce, the females are now with the other male. If you look through, from where we're sitting, you can see the other group next door.
Right.
So there you've got, this is Joe, and then next door you've got Manfi, who is the other adult male. He's 32 years old.
And is their breeding programme successful?
Not at the moment, because you can't force them to do anything. Manfi's actually side 3 babies, but there's nothing going on at the moment. I don't think it's an age thing, because they still can reproduce at that age, but there's just, at the moment, he's just being lazy, and because he's not sort of being forceful, the girls aren't letting him breed either. Oh, thank you. We'll have that lemon, shall we?
Well, the bottom lip's hanging out and the sawdust is coming in. I think we better get and go. So.
I'll go and get him a few nuts and raisins.
Okay.
He said, you've won again. He might get a bit angry with me now, because can you hear him coughing there?
Is it?
Well, that's the threat noise that a griller will make. And what it is because he knows I've just tipped some in his hand, and he knows to keep him occupied, I'm going to put the rest of them on the bars, on the wire, on the ledge, so that he's now got to earn them. So you'll see how he does it.
And he's quite literally just sticking his tongue through the bar and licking them up.
He can use his hands if he wants to, his fingers, but it's just the way that he does it, because he knows that he's not going to lose any of them then. And it just keeps him busy for a few minutes. So he's sticking his tongue through the wire, like a chameleon. They'll stick to his tongue, and then he takes them back into his mouth.
He is absolutely enormous, isn't he? The power that he must have is quite frightening, actually.
Yeah, well, you can't force them to do anything. It's all down to trust and cooperation. Every time you open one of the slides, because we've got manual slides which come into the bed areas, and you can't hold, physically we're not as strong. So there's no point in trying to force the issue and push slides shut and everything, because it just won't work. It's down to them trusting you, and then their cooperation as well. Like every time you want them to come into an area, you have to ask them, and if they want to come, they will, and if they don't, you have to wait.
He is incredibly delicate, actually, for the power that he must.
They are. They're very dexterous with their hands and everything. Throughout the day, sunflower seeds and bits of corn are scattered. And that's, people think that they're eating the sawdust, but if they watch carefully, they can see that they are picking up individual bits of seeds, and that's just to keep them busy throughout the day, because in the wild, the most of their day would be spent foraging.
This is it's kind of an unusual job you've got here. When and why did you decide to become a keeper?
Basically, I was a keeper from when I left school. I always wanted to do something with animals. Originally, I thought about being a veterinary nurse, but then two reasons why I didn't go ahead with that. One was because I really didn't want to do all the extra exams and everything. And then the second reason being, I don't think I could have liked, putting the animals to sleep and everything, which obviously you'd have had to have helped the vet do things like that. So just from there, I got a job in a zoo, and then 5 years later I came here. So I've been here ever since.
So where do these originate from then?
The gorillas are from Africa, from the Congo, Cameroon area.
And were these rescued, or were these bred in captivity?
No, Joe and Bongo, the other old female that we've got in the group next door, they were two of the original animals that came from the wild when it was thought okay to do. So obviously, like when Joe came in, they would have been bought from dealers. So unfortunately, they would have probably been poached at that time. Yeah. But Joe's been here now since he was, I think he was probably about 9 months old, and Bongo was even younger.
And do they have different personalities between the two?
Well, they're just like separate people. Everyone's got their own mannerisms, and if they're being grumpy. When you're working with them constantly, you do get to know what the mood swings are like. With the other gorillas that we've got, two of the others were actually from the wild as well. They were basically the last. With another gorilla that went to Bristol Zoo that we'd quarantined, they were the last ones that came in from the wild, and then it was sort of stopped from there. But all the others that we got were bred in zoos.
And the things like the drinking and the eating, do they display any other type of kind of human attributes?
Oh yeah, they do everything we do. They'll sit and they'll poke the nose, and then they'll eat it, and they scratch the bums, and they sit just like we do. They'll put their hands on the hips. They snore because when one of the females were expecting the baby, because it was her first one, we weren't sure what she was going to be like, because obviously you're not sure what they're going to do, if they're going to be able to cope or whether they're going to injure it. So I actually slept here every night for about 6 weeks while we were waiting for her to have it. Oh. And Manfi snores terribly.
And do they know you're here then? And does that...
Oh yeah, because they can see you. I just slept in a camp bed outside in the kitchen area right next to them. So I think they realise why you're there, but they do sort of play up on it as well, where, oh well, if you're here and you're going to be here at 9 o'clock, can you give us an extra drink? Ordinarily, I mean, when the zoo shuts in the summer, we close from 6 o'clock. And basically when I was here, at 6:30, they were asleep. Because it's something that I'd always sort of wondered what they were going to do when we weren't here. And if everything's quiet, they do tend to go to sleep straight away. They'll wake up in the night just the same as we do. Sometimes they'll want to go to the toilet, so you're woken up.
Thank you.
A bit more sawdust. You're woken up in the middle of the night by somebody having a wee. So I mean, just everything they do, because they're in the primate group. The great apes are the nearest that you can get to a human. Like with the bonobos, I think they're only supposed to be 1% removed DNA from a human being. So it just shows how close they are, and it's like you say, everything that they can do the same as what we can.
And presumably they learn as well. Oh
yeah, it's even the same with the gorillas. There's some that they're all intelligent, but it's like with children, there's always one that stands out, and that they are more cleverer than the others. The one female that we've got, Asante, that was bred here, she's 21 in June, and she is very clever, and it's the sort of thing where sometimes you only have to show them something once, and they'll know what you want from them, and they'll help you out. Like sometimes when the slides get blocked up with bits of paper or clothes or things, and you ask them if they'll move them for you, because they know that you're going to reward them with a piece of fruit or some, a treat, they'll help you out.
Oh, brilliant. Can you describe and talk us through some of the enrichment that we can see here in front of us?
Yeah, because Joe's old, he doesn't tend to use all of it, but it's still there, so if he does want to use it, he can do. There's big ship rope there, which is, how thick would you say it is? It's probably about 6 inches thick diameter. and it's strung from one side of the pen to the other, held up by metal brackets on the top of the walls. And that just hangs out. That's just to sort of represent in the wild if they were to be going climbing. There's a climbing frame in the middle of the pen as well, which is big logs for him to actually climb up onto. There's hosing hanging down and strewn across the pen. That again is just for them to walk across and hold on to. There's tyres that are hanging down. Sometimes he gets treats put inside them, so with things like that as well, you can hide things as well.
Yeah, is that would you describe that as like a bath in the middle of the?
It is, yeah. At the moment, the weather's still a bit cold, but when the weather changes and we've got the warmer weather, then they have got the bath filled. Well, it's not full, because they only have a few inches in there. But if you do fill it up, it goes all over the floor because they have such fun with it. But then we have to clean it up of an evening. So they only get about 3 or 4 inches of water in there, but it's still enough for them to get in and splash around in if they want to.
And does he order much out of the catalogue over there?
Yeah, he picks what Christmas present he wants in advance, yeah.
Generally bananas, crazy.
The thing is, with what you're giving them to play with, you've got to be careful because you've got to give them things which, A, they're not going to break up to cause injury to themselves, and things that they can't damage the enclosure with. So the balls that you see there, they are the heavy plastic balls that you can have, because obviously if you was to put a leather ball in there or a plastic ball, within a second, because they've got the canine teeth that the males have got, they're probably a good 2 inches in length, and they'll just bite straight through it. And then obviously you've got to watch that they don't eat anything that they shouldn't be eating then. It's like the same as like with the blankets. With Joe in next door, they've got cloths, because one of his favourite hobbies in the summer is he goes outside and he lays the blanket down on the floor and it just looks like a picnic. And he lies. I've actually had people come and ask me if I've been and done it, and he does it. And then he's got duvet covers and he gets inside them, and people think he's trapped and he can't get out. I had one lady come to me a few years back. There's a gorilla around there and he's caught up. He can't get out. And I said, no, it's okay. I said, he'll only be playing. No, he can't get out. She said, I can see his hands and he's struggling. He can't get out. He's stuck. And I said, well, I'll come and look. And I said, but I'm sure it's Joe and he's just playing. And I went round and sure enough, he's lying there on the floor and you can see his arms playing and he's tickling himself. And she was still convinced that he couldn't get out. So I said, all right, I'll stop his game. I said, and I'll show you. And I just banged on the window with my keys and called him. And because he knew I was there, he got straight out of this duvet and he gave me such a look as if to say, well, what are you spoiling my game for? You're making me get out. And then, only then did the lady say, oh, I do realise now, yes, he was playing. But just to satisfy her that he wasn't trapped, had to spoil his game. But
I think it would take much more than a duvet cover to...
Yes, I know that. But unfortunately, she didn't seem to realise that the strength that he's got. And it didn't matter what I said to her. And I thought, well, the only way to prove it was to get him to come out of it.
It's very warm in here. Is the heating on for them?
Oh yes. We've got underfloor heating in all the houses, and it's based on about 70 degrees because in Africa, as you can imagine, it's nice and warm. It's not like over here. They have got access outside, and they come in and out as they want to. So quite often, even like now, it is getting warmer, but Joe takes these blankets outside with him, and if it is cold, he sits there and he wraps the blankets around him so he still keeps himself nice and warm.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
That's all right.
Thank you very much. That's been brilliant.
Yes, you are.
Wow.
Thank you so much. That's all right.
Thank you very much.
That's really appreciate it.
Tara and Karishma were born in 1998, just a few weeks apart. They were only the 5th and 7th elephants to be born in British zoos. Our elephants are fed on fruit, vegetables, hay, dry mix and vitamin supplements. They also have browse and grass. Elephants eat up to 8% of their body weight a day and drink up to 225 litres a day. Elephants have few natural enemies except man. The major threat to their survival is habitat destruction. Gorillas are vegetarians. They don't eat meat at all and sometimes regurgitate their food. Gibbons and orangutans eat a lot more fruit.
You've been listening to the Zoo Radio podcast. Please like and subscribe to get the latest episodes.